meeting to order here.
Quick and efficient.
Welcome to the, I don't know, didn't we, you all set? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Go back to our agenda here. So, you folks are here for the technology overview, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure you didn't want to make a statement as part of the audience. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Anything? I don't think we have any. Okay. So, I don't see anyone here from the audience to speak, so we'll move on to our presentation, which will be 4.11, which is tech integration. We're doing handouts? Okay.
We are.
Ironically.
Megan,
Okay.
I don't know if we have enough.
Awesome.
I don't need to take on, so.
It's Carrie and Ellen, right?
It is.
Okay.
I was going to introduce them in a couple of
Alan.
pages. So.
Oh, you do?
Is
Okay.
this revised right now? And this is the, this
Ready?
is it.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you for,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm not finished.
So Ellen and Carrie are here tonight, and I'll introduce them in a minute, but I just wanted to start by saying that if you look on page 2 here, we have our vision for our educational technology, where all SCS stakeholders will understand the role of educational technology and the connection of digital literacy to current and emerging educational reform. So that's really what we're looking for when we talk about tech integration and what we're doing. So we really work hard to match the needs of the students and the adults in our building with a particular technology. So technology is a tool, and we really try to remember that. A lot of discussion has been had about one-to-one initiatives, and as you know, at Shelburne, we don't necessarily have a one-to-one initiative, although we did look at the number of devices that we have in our building right now, and we're darn tootin' close to a one-to-one ratio. But certainly devices are not dependent for one child with one device, for example. So kiddos do have a range of devices at their fingertips that they can use for specific purposes, and we maximize the equipment that way. So we're also really looking at how do we teach that digital tool as an embedded part of a child's learning. So teachers create units, and they talk to Ellen and Carrie about how they can then enhance, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but that curriculum with technology so that it's something that really is transformational for the education in that classroom. So as I said, Ellen and Carrie are here. They're going to talk to the rest of this part of the presentation, and I will hand it over to you now.
Okay. So, I'm the educational, or the technology integrationist at Shelburne. I'm a teacher. That's my first job. I am a teacher. My job, my primary job, is to help all the teachers and staff and students with their technology needs, help them understand the place that technology plays in the curriculum, the fact that all of our students need to be learning and using technology. They need to become fluent with it in order to succeed when they get older. I mean, it's their world. Technology is the architect of almost everything that we have in our society at this point that is not in the natural world. I know that sounds kind of strange. I do this from the point of being also a librarian. A librarian is also a technology integrationist in many ways. It's one role a librarian has. And many of you knew that I was a librarian at SCS before I became a technology integrationist. So my job's just kind of split. And so that's why Carrie is here too. We both do this job. I'm the person that handles the stuff that's strictly technology integrationist, or has, when somebody comes with that need, they see me. But as far as working with the teachers and the students, she is very, very, very much involved with this, and a lot of the really good razzle-dazzle stuff she's been doing with the kids this fall. So I said she has to be here and she has to tell you what we've been up to. This page is basically the top of it gives you the ISTE standards for students, and this is what all the International Society for Technology and Education. I would say everybody that's a technology integrationist in Vermont and anywhere else in the U.S. is a member of this society, as is Carrie. Its main goal is to help educators do this better with their kids, and it's changing all the time. These are the 6 standards that are very broad. If you look at their website, or if you look at we have a link on our website to this, it begins to articulate how it looks at each grade level. But these are just the broad strokes that apply to all kids, all students. They should have activities that include each of these kinds of skills. Below that, you see a picture of what's called the SAMR model. And this is something that we in Vermont particularly use because most of us had training from the guy who invented it, Dr. Ruben Quintadura, and we went to a series of workshops of his several years ago. And it's a nationally recognized model for looking at technology integration and its effectiveness in the classroom. And it goes from substitution at the bottom through augmentation. Then you see kind of a dotted line in between modification and redefinition. And so you kind of look at what you're doing and see where it fits on there. You really don't want to just be doing substitution. You know, that's kind of like a waste of your money. I could buy a pencil and a piece of paper and I could do a math worksheet. Or I could do it on an iPad, and probably it's going to be a lot more cost effective to do it on paper. So if you're using a technological tool, you want it to get beyond the substitution model. And a substitution would be if you use a typewriter instead of your pencil to write the paper. When you get to augmentation, it may be that you use a word processing program instead of just a typewriter because it's got spell check and things like that. When you get to modification, it would mean that you're using something like a Google Doc where you could share it with someone else. You could both write on it. You could embed pictures, which you could with Word and everything else. But you would have the ability to have auto-save. You would have much more capability. You would access it anywhere. And when you get to redefinition, that's when you're doing things that really you could not do without the tool itself. And we were said try to give you a picture of it with examples of each of these tools or each of these categories and what we're doing in each one. I said, okay. And then I started working on it and I'm like, wait a minute. So many of the things that we do may start out at one level, but they go to another level. And it takes a person who is aware of what they're doing, aware of this model, aware in their head that they could do more with it with the students so that the students, you get more bang for your buck. They would learn more or be more engaged or could share it with more people if they took it up a notch. And the next page is kind of like this is kind of ugly looking, but this is a great example of that. Sally Stevens is one of our first grade teachers. And she came to me at the beginning of the year. She had taken a workshop over the summer. And she wanted to do something with Google and her kids. And we don't have email accounts for first and second graders. And I said, that's going to be kind of hard. But Patty was willing to say, yeah, they could have email. The teachers were all willing to say, yeah, they could have email. But we said, well, we could give them Google Drive to start with without email. And they could do that. And that would accomplish what Sally wanted to do, which was to have them do their writing and share it in Google Drive. So she goes, I know this is just at the substitution level, and I know this is just first grade, and she was kind of embarrassed about wanting to do this simple substitution, maybe augmentation skill with her kids. we started out doing it, and this is just a screenshot of one of her students' books. She had them choose their best book to write. And so they wrote it. First of all, we got the words down. Then they worked on their titles, and they worked on changing their font size, and they changed backgrounds and added pictures. And you can add pictures from within the document when you're doing it. And then she said, can we share them? So the kids learned how to share their docs with their parents. And the day we did this, she had alerted the parents that we were going to be doing this about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're down in the lab. And the kids all shared. I mean, have you ever seen first graders try to type someone's email address is like puddlejumpers@vermonthandiworks.com or something into, one finger at a time? But they got them all in. We made them right, and then they shared them. And some of the kids started getting comments from their parents while we were there, and they were just beyond belief excited that they could share this with someone else that they knew and wanted to show their work to, and their parents would write back. And so this one's just showing you a couple of the comment boxes on what it comes up like. But Sally realized that she had really taken this all the way through. It's something you could not do with a typewriter. You could not do it with Word. You had to do it with something that would allow you to put it out into the world and communicate with other people. And so this is how just one thing goes from a little thing to a big thing. And so the rest of this whole document is just kind of, I'm not going to read it to you. I'll just try and point out a couple of things on each page. On the S is for substitution page, those kids are, with the iPads, they are typing. They are typing little reports and things on there. But they also then, after they would type the words in there, they're using Book Creator, which is a way to make a book out of it. And they're adding pictures. They can add sound. They can add video to it. In this case, we were just adding pictures, but you can take it to different levels. Diana Burrett, one of our music teachers, had her students learn how to play an instrument. Then they wrote about it. Then they videoed each other playing the instrument, and then they put it together into a project like this, so that you take it and you can move it from one point to the other, and you can stop at any point on the way. So while we have iPads, and while sometimes we use them for typing in information, in most cases that then transforms into something else. The first time I took a cart of iPads into a first grade classroom last year, and we talked about holding them, and we talked about turning them on, and we did this and this and this. And we're all in a circle, and they turned them on, and this one kid looked at his iPad. He's like, where's the games? I said, well, I don't think we have any games on this one. Oh, I don't want it then. So he jumped up and he ran out of the circle, and there were no other adults in the rooms. The rest of us just continued on our way, and he sat under a desk, and we got into the business of creating and drawing and doing things like that. And very, very slowly, he crept his way back, and by the time I left, he was working on it, because we don't want them just to play games. We want them to have their little hearts and souls in here and to be able to communicate. So that's kind of how it goes. Augmentation. This explains augmentation up at the top. An example of it might be Google Classroom. Google has been a savior to many, many schools. And Google Classroom came out this fall. And before Google Classroom, we had a lot of teachers using Google with their students. And if you shared something with your teacher, suppose I'm the teacher and you're the students, how do we share this so that it all works? Or how do I make sure you share it right? And so, there's many things, like I create a folder and you put your stuff in the folder, and but with Google Classroom, it's like bingo. I put the assignment in there, I've got my kids loaded, I can share it with one kid, a number of kids, all of the kids. When I can see them working on it, I can look and check in, I can comment, I can keep track of things. They press a turn in button, which means they can't touch it anymore until I, the teacher, give it back to them. And it's all electronic. So that is a way that Google really ramped up something that was a little more simple and made it so very doable for all teachers. The bottom one is a screenshot of an online test. This is from our grading program, Jupiter Grades, and a couple of the teachers figured out that they could put their kids' tests in here. The kids could do the test electronically that the teachers have created, and it automatically then stores the grade. This, I'm going to say, is augmentation, because being able to take a test online is just a little different than taking it on paper, but then the facilitation of the grading and so forth and the practice the kids get doing an online test falls into that category. Anyway, when you get into modification, a little teeny tiny aside. I said there was this little dividing line in between substitution, augmentation, and the next part. And the time we were doing this whole series of workshops and learning about this whole model and implementation of it, and this went on all year. This was at the DoubleTree in South Burlington. And one day at lunch, we came up with this SAMR of lunch. And the substitution is eating lunch at school at your desk. It's when you substitute, you might go to the lunchroom and get a lunch and then eat back in your cubicle or whatever. The augmentation, when you would maybe invite a friend in to eat with you. That's making your lunch a little bit better. But it's still basically eating your lunch at your desk. It's a little bit better than it was before. Maybe you're doing something. Modification is when you go to the DoubleTree for lunch. That's a big difference. And this is where you change the ballgame just a little bit. And that's what technology and what you're doing is. Maybe you're having them do video or audio, and you're looking back and you're taking some of those ordinary things that you couldn't do before, and you're making them richer and better. Lunch at the DoubleTree is better than lunch at my desk. Redefinition is when you are sitting here at the DoubleTree having lunch with the colleagues that you're in this class with, and you're exchanging ideas, and you're learning from each other at the same time you're having lunch. So that's kind of a way to look at it. It's a changer when you get to the modification level. And when we get here, you see another screenshot of Sally's, and we put commenting in this area of, this is another one of her students' books, small. And I would say that commenting definitely puts it in a different, the modification level. Really, it's in the redefinition level. But now then, I want Carrie to talk, because a lot of this stuff she's done.
So as a librarian, I always say under the big umbrella, information technology, and my job is to help students and staff access information using technology and create new information using technology. And that is where the library field has been at for 20 years. And so Ellen, her other half-time job as a librarian, she's doing this all at the same time as I am, and it's really has to do with going out, finding out what units teachers are working at a given time, and coming up with some ideas that might be able to help them get their kids to where they want them to be. And so we sort of backwards approach from there and say, okay, if this is what you want your kids to know and be able to do at the end, what do they need to know to get there? And what tools do they need to know, learn how to use to get there to do that? And so as we go through that backward design approach right to the very beginning, this first one, literally just tossed this together this morning. And this came about, the Explain Everything app is a fabulous app for the iPads, something that I can't do in another way. That it's, the ease of doing it on the iPad is just, that's the tool to use. And so Claire came and said, so she wanted her kids to do something like a photo story. So a photo story is a slideshow where you have a picture and then the kids record their voice. So she was going to have them recording their, French sentences describing their classrooms or their homes and what was going on in their kitchen at the time. And something happened. So if you're in the lab, we would need microphones. And recording in the lab is always a little tricky, and the whole photo story thing sometimes doesn't work. And then maybe the laptops weren't available either. Then I was like, okay, Chromebooks. And I'm like, it's just a simple slideshow. Let's do Google Slides. Can't record, right? And then I just, of course, this is what we've got. We've got iPads. So on Explain Everything, you record a slide that's an actual movie. So you can embed movies, audio, text. If you've ever seen any of those drawing, when you're watching a movie and you're seeing somebody actually draw out the point they're trying to get across, you record that and you put it all together. And then you can send it off and share it wherever you want. So it was just like boom, boom, quick, done. What's the main lesson here? The kids need to have their voice heard, speaking French correctly with the right vocabulary. And everybody was happy and excited, and they're right in the middle of that now, just started that. The other big thing we did Global Read Aloud this year, which was just ginormous. You have a group of books you can choose from. And so the lower grades, we read Peter Reynolds books to the younger kids, and K2s, and did some of the activities through Edmodo. Edmodo is like a Facebook for teachers and students. Eric Brunvan uses it a lot for a teaching student interactive interface. And on Edmodo for us, what we did with the Global Read Aloud, there were different groups for each book. And then, so there were, 1,000 different teachers all connecting together throughout the world about this one book. And so through that, then we made connections with classrooms. And so one of the connections that we did was somebody did for one of the books, it has to do with, they have this paper airplane in it, and he did a spoof on, I guess there was a Saturday Night Live one with something about subways across America. I don't know, look it up. I had to look it up. So it's on too late for us. So what it is they were throwing the Subway sandwich, and then someone in Wisconsin would catch it. And then they would throw it, so then you were there. So one of the teachers said, hey, let's do this with the paper airplane. So one of our classes, we did it after reading the book, and we made our paper airplane, and we have the kids catching the airplane and throwing it off. And so this is a fabulous thing. If you want to look at any of this stuff, on the SCS website, the library links page under Just Read and Global Read Aloud, all of these things are there live, and it's fascinating to see it happen and where around the world they all went. That same, it's sort of skipping around a little bit. Under the redefinition page, we have that world map. So with our groups of the Peter Reynolds books, then another group, 4th and 5th graders doing 14th Goldfish, and another class doing Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, I made a Google map, shared it with the group on Edmodo, the group meaning these thousands of teachers all over the world, and said, drop your pin where you're reading this book. And so the classes got on and started dropping their pins on this live Google map that you can see where everyone is. And so being able to share that, and then, we work with the kids about like where are things, and we're getting out the globe and looking at the map and doing Google Earth. So that was another, again, the Global Read Aloud had sort of just exploded into an amazing opportunity for a lot of kids. The 4th and 5th graders really took off with this book, 14th Goldfish. We did many what we call either mystery Skypes or Google Hangouts. And so they would start out with, a couple of teachers getting together through this Edmodo and saying, do you want to do a mystery? And so all the kids have their own roles, so there'll be greeters, and there'll be questioners, and there'll be lead thinkers and runners, and literally the kids are just all over the room. The mappers on Google Maps, the mappers on Google Earth, the mappers on a puzzle map. And then, so what you have is a live hangout with another classroom where you're looking at the kids on your screen in where the kids don't know, and you're asking them yes or no questions. Does your state border Canada, yes or no? And so as they do it, kids start, Xing out on Google Earth, like, it can't be this date, can't be this date, can't be this date, and narrowing it down until they get where it was. And then once they develop that relationship, then it became some book discussions, some talking about what was actually happening in the story and some predictions. And so in that same, of this big umbrella, we had kids do Padlets about predicting about the books that were shared with the world. And Monique Tater and I worked together. She was having her kids research some of the famous scientists that were mentioned in the book. And so we used the Gale Cengage resources, which are it's the Vermont Online Database. And so the kids learned how to research using that database, take notes on a Google Doc using the trash and treasure method of note-taking that we teach, and then write a short paragraph about their scientists in a sense of, scientists who believe in the possible. That's another page down there. And so then we turned that into, those paragraphs were shared on something called TAC, which I learned about through, again, this Edmodo and the Global Read Aloud connection. And so we put that up there, and within days, I got an email saying your TAC has reached over 100 views. We have over 60 incredible comments that kids and teachers went on and specifically said, Chase, I really liked what you said about, or they asked Stella a question, and then Stella went back in and answered the question, and it's just this running, and the kids can go back on and see what other people are saying. I think having that kind of audience was huge, and for fourth grade, it was just really a really successful unit over time that sort of touched on many different things. We had a Google Hangout with the author, a live feed on Monday, and so they had the author and the teacher who runs the whole Global Read Aloud doing interview questions. Our kids were able to ask questions beforehand, and we were also on a live Twitter feed asking questions at that time as well. Skipping around a little bit more here. We had talked earlier about Pam and Laura are doing public service announcements about our watershed, and they're sort of, up in the air. How should we do the recording? How we're going to share it? They're doing UVM radio, and then today Ellen said, "Oh, RTM,
can you do this?"
And so that's an ongoing, again, following some research for that. Blue Marble. This is another
This
great
was a
one.
fun one.
How are we doing here? Way over the legal limit?
Way over.
Okay, well. What? 4 minutes over?
No, you have 4 minutes.
Oh, I have 4 minutes left. Oh, wow. Okay, so Blue Marble. So David Southworth was doing this unit about the Earth Cam. Everybody know
middle
about
school.
Earth Cam? Alan will do a quick explanation of Earth Cam.
You'd like me to do it?
Yeah,
Yes.
just really quick.
You know what it
Okay,
is.
So, yeah, EarthCam is an ongoing NASA project where they have a high-resolution camera on the space station, and about once every 3 months, they allow students around the country to take control of that camera. They can program it to take pictures of whatever geographic sites it's traveling over, but they have to do a lot of work on latitude and longitude because they have to predict to the exact second where it's going to be when they want to take the picture. So David has picked up that project and been doing it for about 3 years now, and went to Carrie and said, I'm doing it again this year, and Carrie.
And so we have got this great collection of ebooks now. And so what we're really focusing on are ebooks that provide unlimited simultaneous access. So we buy an ebook for not cheap, that, could be $30, $40. But every kid, anytime, anywhere, can be reading and interacting with that book. So one of the fabulous ones we have was The Blue Marble, which is how a photograph revealed Earth's fragile beauty. So there's a whole series of these books, and they're all, a different theme. Anyway, so what a great tie-in, right? And we want to give kids practice on reading on screens, taking notes on a separate window, and then writing from those notes.
All
And-
online.
And
online.
so the Blue Marble, the kids get on, they can check out their book, they're logged in as them, and so they can take notes while they're in the book. And so I have a screenshot of that, again, totally, will show you any of this, just come by. And so then the kids were required to take the notes to answer the questions. So before they answered the questions, they needed to have the notes in the book and then put thoughtful answers to the questions that were really just like critical thinking questions about the book, the concept, and why that was so important. And that was amazed me. Because first of all, it's the librarian saying, and then you will, but because David is there saying, and so part of your assessment will be, you know what I mean? So it's tied to his unit, which is tied to the EarthCam unit, and it just really fit together nicely. And like I said, we have a huge collection of those books, and more people are, we did a lot with that last year, kids taking notes within the book, so it's good practice as well.
What we like to do is to cajole the teachers, look at what they're doing, see how we can help them ramp it up, how they can include something that would be relevant and meaningful. If you look back on the first page of wherever it was I started talking, and you see those 6 pieces of the ISTE standards there, and like, for instance, when she's talking about the posting and talking back and forth to the other kids, and they're doing it live and you're doing it in words. This is digital citizenship. We want to teach them how to do it right. We want to teach them, if you're going to make a mistake, make it in 4th grade, not when you get older. Do it when you have a teacher around, and our job is to guide these kids into becoming really responsible digital citizens and becoming fluent with all these tools. This is really the biggest part of what we do, is to help the teachers and help the students do this. And honestly, there's not a better job in the whole wide world than doing this. This is
Yeah, we
this
do.
is
It's
and
really fun.
and I am so fortunate to have her.
The SAMR model, I think, when did we first learn about that? That was a long time ago. And part of me, I look at it and think, I can't even believe we're even talking about this now, like whether it's substitution or, it just is. That, like our kids, this is all they know. It's all they will know. Of course, everything for us will be a substitution. But for them, it just is. And so, you think of that phrase was like 20 years ago. We've been saying that. We're in it. And I think our kids are really getting some incredible opportunities. Again, we need the bandwidth. Google Hangouts, man, they suck it up. But do you want to see what kids are like running around the room, trying to figure out where these other kids, and all of that about having an authentic audience for their work. And that knowing that because of social media, everything our kids do is going to have an audience. Everything they do has an audience. So what a great thing that we can provide all these practice sessions in school.
One more thing. Today, I was in a mystery hangout with a group of 5th graders. And the teacher said to me when they were almost, and she goes, they're so off task. They're so off task. And so, you try to get them back on. But you've got different groups of kids running around. Of course, they're interested in trying to wave at the other people on the screen and so forth. But as soon as it was finished, she had them sit down, look at the big screen, and she played a movie she had just taken of them off task and said, analyze what's going on in this room. What are these students doing? Great opportunity.
A lot of
and
really
she's-
good just-in-time
She's just right there on
learning
top of it.
that's-
And it's like, we're getting ready, we're gearing up. Carrie and I are really not exactly computer programmers, but we're going to try and help do the Hour of Code with kids to teach kids to code. And I think, it's like, I don't know who it was that said that, to the kids, don't just buy a video game, make one. Don't just download an app for your iPad, build it. Don't just play with your phone, program it.
Questions, comments?
Well, it's working because our grandkids come home and they do this stuff there. They make videos and then want to post them on YouTube and get reactions and react to people, or download Scribble or some of those other book apps and sit and make their own books in there and record their voices on the book. So they're really, really excited about it. They just want to keep doing it.
Yeah,
when
and
they
that's
get
what's
home.
so great that we can give them this opportunity, in school now. Back in the day when it used to be we're talking way back, but you think of video, the kids, that first kind of generation of kids that actually had video of themselves and talking easily like that, and that they had got to hear their voices like that. And I'm not talking like, we never did the 8mm thing, but, and then you come to school and you watch film strips, and
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't that long ago. I mean, I came to Shelburne and there were a lot of film strips there.
We emptied out a whole room of film
And Ellen and I,
strips.
they threw a lot away. And it's so powerful to have kids coming and saying, you want to make a movie? I'll show you how to use iMovie. You want to do this? Yeah, we're going to show you how to do this coding.
Yeah.
And it's to be able to meet them there and then have them say, oh, look at what I discovered, and you can say, okay, everybody, somebody just figured out something new. It's all a lot of really good just-in-time learning, I think.
So our parting thought for you is, just want to bring it full circle. And when we sat down and talked about this, I noticed when we handed this out, Dave, I don't know if you said it loud enough to be, he's like, I don't know if the word was ironic, but it's like, oh, a technology presentation, and we're going to hand you a packet. I want you to know that was intentional, okay? Because what we want you to come away with is a level of thinking about technology in the school that you support and the school that you help develop. We are blessed with technology, yes. This could have been a wowzer, flash and dance, and might have been better. But that's the question we ask ourselves every day is, what's our learning goal? What's our learning outcome? And will this technology, in an efficient manner, make it better? And we're perfectly comfortable. We walk into classes all the time that still have handouts. We walk into classrooms that have technology, and we don't ask the question, are you using the technology, but are the kids learning? And so, if we were in one of our classrooms right now and we as administrators were assessing it, we'd sit down and say, okay, the goal of this was to have you learn about technology at SCS. Did you do it? Will you remember it? And if the answer is yes, we hit the mark, even though we didn't turn on a single computer. If the answer was no, then we'd want to go back and say, hey, let's counsel a little bit here and let's talk about another way to go forward with it. And just really wanted to kind of drive that point home, because I know constantly out in society it is, do you have the whiz-bang stuff in your school? We do have the whiz-bang stuff, but a lot of times we might even ask a teacher, keep it off today, because this is about human interaction today, and that's what's going to make the difference. So.
I know the district went through the technology review in all the schools. How has that changed what you're doing, or how are you using that assessment that they went through?
I don't really know that it changes what we're doing. I think we are still working and doing what we were doing before. I think part of the technology audit says that maybe Shelburne teachers do not know who the technology integrationist is. And I think that is in part because we have an office that we share, we have roles that we share, and we don't really care what they think, we just want to make it work. In terms of in-service this year, I think we're having more in-service that is devoted to technology in terms of teaching teacher strategies to help students use digital tools and resources to learn or to add to what they already do, or to in some places replace, because those kids will face a big test this spring that is all online, and they have to be fluent in their use of technology and comfortable with it. And it's a little different. You have to work with them to get them to do that, and we're doing that across the SSU, very, very carefully making sure that we do the same thing everywhere. So the technology integration is at the K-8 level, meet every week via Google Hangout, because it's a lot easier than driving place to place. We keep notes, we keep track, we make sure that we all know what the others are doing in their schools. I think there's been more awareness of that. Other than that, it's not that I think we were doing anything wrong. I think there's a lot of good that's been going on in Shelburne that just people don't think about, or maybe we haven't talked about it enough. But there's a real emphasis been on putting technology in that works with learning, that works with the curriculum. We're very thoughtful. We haven't been the flash dance people. We have been the people who've been very deliberate and kind of draggy foot at times, but making sure it works, making sure it's going to be worth our money.
Yep, and I can offer, because I think coming out of the tech audit, probably a more substantial change has been in some things that Patty and I are doing as administrators. And it has been a very intentional approach this fall. Every fall we sit down and we meet with every teacher around their 4-year goals. And I know we made an agreement when we're starting out based on that, saying, well, part of what came out of that tech audit was a lack of knowledge about teachers, about the importance of considering technology and how that can move things forward. And so what has happened in every one of those conversations this year has been, okay, you have these 3 goals. Where does technology fit into that? What are you doing personally? What PD are you seeking out? What things are you trying? And even our offering support, saying, you know what? If you try something and it doesn't work, that's really good learning. That's the type of learning we want to support. Don't wait till you got it perfected, because with this technology, we'll never be there. We want to encourage that risk taking. And so that's happened in 80 different conversations this fall, and it manifests itself. I mean, what I would say is, I think if we ask, they're seeing more business because of that conversation on our part.
I
People are
totally agree.
recognizing-
I totally agree with that. I have teachers coming and saying, this is part of my goal.
How can you help me?
That is
Right.
enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Easier
also
than a
think
one-arm
the
paper hanger.
the level
Great.
of professional
Thank you. Sorry
development
to interrupt.
also has been significant, I think. A lot of my teachers have asked for more professional development along those lines, so, and have been able to access that, so that's been great. And you're right, I mean, you told me that teachers who
Well,
had
thank
not
you.
necessarily
Sorry,
done
go on.
No, that was all I had.
Yeah, that has been very powerful. And even, looking at the SBAC, I mean, Common Core there's so much information literacy and research that goes into those Common Core language arts skills. So that's huge
driving
for
it.
our profession. And then when you look at SBAC and some of the inquiry tasks that they're doing, and so how do we give kids practice with this? And, there's, we're looking at, is there research out there that says that people don't comprehend well reading online as they do with a hard copy, right? Well, yeah, there is. But the problem is, guess what? More and more, our kids, that's it. So I think instead of saying, oh, well, we have to give them a paper copy because they're not going to understand the electronic version, it might mean that we need to have more practice reading the electronic version. And that right now, that's an educational, issue that's, it's going to affect everybody. But I hear that our teachers are talking about it. And those are the kinds of things like Ellen was saying that, the teachers are really thoughtful about it, before they go and jump on one of these ebooks. they're asking me, yeah, but I'm really worried about the comprehension. And those are the kind of conversations that I think are really important and great for us to have as educators, looking at, individual students, and, like Ellen and Patty are saying, like, it's about the learning. But, there are different factions there of what learning, it's a lot.
I'd like to make just one observation. I mean, you've given a great presentation, and all I can think of is that you bring to the school a dimension that enables the teachers to fulfill the mission, to learn actively and collaboratively. That story about how the kids were all, they got their parents involved, and they can involve each other in a way that it's never been before, and think creatively and critically. I mean, it's just incredible.
It was amazing. And this was Monique is, worked with her years ago, and, she was on our faculty. And when I came, global read aloud, and she's saying,
No.
I really got a lot on my plate right now.
I can't do this.
And I said, but I'm going to do everything for you. I'll do all the Edmodo stuff for you. I'll get your kids all set up. I'll do everything. And she said, okay. And I said, if you ask me to do that, I will do that for you. And she said, okay, I'm asking you to do that for me. So I do this little part for her. She took off, and what, she says, oh, thank you, this was so great. And what I say is, I got nothing. If I don't have you, I don't have your kids, and then it's pointless. And she just went so far with this after saying, I don't know if I can. That is just, it's fabulous to work with people like that, and they are all over that school. I mean, they just, you cannot go around a corner without seeing people just, taking one little grain and then just running with it in a magnificent way.
And I observed her.
And that too.
Talk about a risk taker.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank
Great.
you.
Thanks
That's
for
wonderful.
that.
Excellent presentation.
Great job.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you for doing it.
Have a great night.
Okay.
You did
And this
all
was put
set.
together with
Pretty
her at
good.
home today and me at work, and then Patty over there. So it's
Yeah.
a Google Doc.
And it was hard for me not
So it
to
was
do
technical.
This was really hard.
Didn't they do a good job?
And the second part was hard.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing.
I know, you know what? I didn't know the reasoning behind it.
That's why
I've
we
been
didn't know.
waiting, and
That's why we
that
didn't
was
tell you.
fabulous.
We did
I-
not know.
I
Really?
You were at the bottom. We didn't
100
have to have technology. You were at the
100%,
bottom.
like, yeah. That-
We
that
ran
was-
into Charlie McFadgen on the way in, and he's doing the same thing with the CBU board, and we said, it's paper, and this is it. And he's like, so.
Now you can tell them why.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
So we'll move on to reports to the board, 5.0, start with the principal's report.
Oops, I'm sorry.
All right, so give you a quick summary. You might wonder what a mix-it-up day is. That's just a real intentional effort that we're doing 4 times this year to take advantage of the fact that we're a community school. So we're blending our middle schoolers with kindergartners, our 7th graders with 1st graders, doing that around the building. And had one of our first days just a couple weeks ago, and nothing but great feedback. In fact, during Skills for Life class today, teaching the middle schoolers, we just wrapped up our unit on bullying and harassment and asked the students, what can we do about, what could we as administration do in this culture to kind of prevent bullying, make a more positive culture? And their feedback was more of these days. This really makes a difference for us. Which is timely because we have one again this Friday. It's Red Ribbon Week, and so on Friday, each group will get together to do a real simple coloring activity about kindness and caring. They'll come away with a product that will have 750 similar displays around the building, with each child having a drawing of their shoes and acts of caring. So it's been a really neat addition that really grew from our wellness committee last year. We tried it first time on Jogathon Day, sort of kicking and screaming, going, you want us to do what in May? And by the time it was done, pretty much unanimous agreement, this is a really good thing to have in the culture.
I love it.
So,
Just a quick playground update. There's been a little bit more that's happened since we wrote this report. So thanks to Bob Mason, we have our RFP out for the playground equipment. Yay, all right. And now the committee, Lisa Williams, Barb Como, and Val Richardson are actively getting people together to do some grant writing. And so they're pursuing some channels for additional funding for the site development and for augmenting the site area. So that's where we are with the playground, and we want to congratulate our 5th and 6th grade spelling bee team. The members were Anthony Sedita, Charlotte Vincent, Isaac Krementsoff, Jack Rutz, Kira Sariski, and Neva Williams, and they came in 2nd in the district. So congratulations to them.
And just an update on grand rounds for parents. That's, again, remember, one of our AYP goals that we hadn't really made a lot of progress on last year was our community and parent education. And so making a concerted effort, we just had a session last month around cyber safety. We had a detective come in, had 30 parents in attendance, which was fantastic. It's really reaching a new group of parents. What we're finding is we have our cafeteria offering dinner, we have Part 2 staff offering childcare, and that seems to make a world of difference when we can offer those two things. So, don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but if you haven't seen the documentary Hungry Heart, we'll be showing that tomorrow night. That's the Vermont documentary around opiate addiction. Really powerful. And so we have that, and then we have the executive director of Howard Center, Bob Bick, who's going to be there to kind of lead a panel discussion afterwards. Same deal, we've got an RSVP out there. Honestly, this one looks like we haven't hit the sweet spot. We've got about 12 families interested so far. So if you're watching, come out tomorrow. But we'll just keep trying. I mean, it's really a good effort from our guidance department. We have an outgrowth of our first session, which was a parenting session, is those parents said, where else can we get this? So we've now offered a 3-night session of parent education, and the first night we had 20 parents out. So, and that one we recruited, Sue Schaefer, I should say, we didn't. Sue Schaefer recruited donations from New Moon Cafe for the dinner, and the Girl Scout troops provided childcare. It worked out great.
Yeah.
So it's neat to see that parent energy in the building, and we're getting really positive feedback about it.
Awesome. So on the back page, professional development, you can obviously read that, but I did just want to highlight that the Vermont Fest is a tech professional development 2-day actual festival held at Killington every year, and we had 3 people attend that, and we had numerous people present from CSSU, so that was kind of fun. I actually got to attend, and a reminder, our November in-services are next week, I think it is, right? Monday and Tuesday, so you can see all the alphabet soup there of things that we'll be doing while we're at our in-services. And our school enrollment, as you can see there, we have 763 students, and actually I think we enrolled two more since then. So we are up to 765 from last month when it was 759. So we continue to increase here and there.
Ever popular.
Any questions?
For the playground, do you guys have good gateways of when you need to get the RFPs back, when you need to make a decision so that you can make the order in time for?
Yeah, it's on the RFP.
It is?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So we won't miss that window in order to, we just want to make sure you guys have it on there, and you do, so that's good.
We got our best people on it.
I know.
I'll
It's just that.
I'll send that to you though,
Bob's
because
on it.
you
Yep.
yeah, Bob, I'll make sure that Bob
Okay. I just don't want to miss the
touches
window,
base.
so
Exactly,
that
exactly.
we don't get the same time to build it this summer.
Perfect. No, I think we've got everything covered, but I will definitely ask Bob about that. Thanks, Dave.
Great. So, speaking of bandwidth, since there's no wireless signal in this room,
Oh, there
Oh,
is.
really?
I think so the next is
The
the.
heat actually seems to be.
The heat.
Yeah.
has
Trade
come
one
back
for the
on.
other.
I stand corrected on
Yeah.
the placebo.
No, it's nice, yeah.
The CSSU debrief, I actually think all of us were there. Oh, you did miss it, sorry. But we did have a long conversation about the special ed budget and the core budget baselines. Discussed the paraeducators moving to be accounted for by payment only back to the CSSU. I think we're gonna vote on that in February. Elaine spoke about the conference she was at by, I forget who, like.
Vermont Business Roundtable sponsored it.
Yes. Vermont Business Roundtable sounded great. There was actually a really good article in the Vermont Digger yesterday about the first day of that. If you want to read that.
Nice.
And it was good to get her perspective on that. It's interesting to hear that the two biggest tables were funding and what do they call reorganization now? It's not governance, right? So.
I spoke with Bob after, as we were walking over here, about my question about the IDEA revenues and how they should be offsetting the expenditures for special ed. And he's going to look into it because, I mean, we should be recovering about 50% of our expenditures in terms of revenues. And when he had it up on that spreadsheet, there was only about $400,000 out of a $13 million.
It's an illustration issue. It's what was projected up there. So the revenue, the typical revenue that you're talking about, the 50% reimbursement,
Yep.
gets taken off the top. And what was illustrated on that was our extraordinary reimbursement, our IDB reimbursement. So different sources of revenue. So I think it's just it's not that it's not factored in. It is factored in. It's just a matter of, we can kind of show you
So
what
the
that looks
$13
like.
million in expenditures is net after the revenues have been.
Correct. The anticipated revenues. Now, and remember that it's all anticipated revenues. We estimate our reimbursement based on our historic time studies.
Okay.
And then we recoup that 4 times a year when we get them.
Good. Thank you.
But yes.
Okay. And then the outcomes and indicators presentation by Molly, which was great. Anything else on CSSU? No? So we'll move on to 5.3, which is the first quarter financial management report. And I know that, I don't know if you guys had a chance to, I sent you a note saying I did have some questions about this. I mean, I read
We
the.
figured there would be. We saw the note when we got here, since it was one of those days for email.
I read the first line that Bob put, that first page, which spoke about why some of the lines were over. I know I read through the line items in the budget, and the way I understand it, and correct me, is from a revenue standpoint, we're missing some reimbursement on special education that we anticipate to come back. And is that, we're in process of filing those sorts of claims, for lack of a better word, and we'll get those in a period of time? Or?
Let me see, and I'll make the first
Sure.
effort,
Yeah.
and Megan will correct me, because, trust me, this has been an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
It has our full attention, trust me, and obviously should have yours.
Okay.
Because bottom line, we're looking at a potential deficit. We knew we were going to spend $165,000 from the fund balance. This goes forward. What it's saying is, well, we're still $122,000 short, which we have in our fund balance, but that's not really how we want to do business. So, as we looked at it, knowing that I can't talk about individual students here, what we're talking about is every October when the service plan comes together, John and Megan and ourselves make our best year-out projection of what are the services that students are going to need. And the category that we're looking here is what's called extraordinary expenses. So students that we spend more than $50,000 a year for, we receive a 90% reimbursement for every dollar after $50,000. And we have a pretty good sized population of those students in our school. We're fortunate because they bring a wealth of opportunity and great learning to our building. There's some significant expense there. And so that expense can be everything from, special ed support. It can be one-to-one paraprofessionals, sometimes multiple paraprofessionals. It might be highly skilled paraprofessionals in nursing, those that can sign, communication specialists. It might be OT, PT, And so a year out, we're trying our best to predict what those expenses are based on kind of history. What, as we analyze this data, has happened is it's in part, we've done some really good work over the last year improving our efficiencies. We've gotten better at providing some of those services. Guess what that does? For some students, it might even drop them off of the extraordinary. So those reimbursements that we thought we were going to get, it's a really good way to do business.
Right.
You know, in a warped way, I guess you could say, why are you spending that time? Because you're going to get reimbursed for it anyway. That's a terrible way to do business. We look and say, what services do these students need? What is the cost-effective way of providing them? And I think John and Megan have done a really good job of analyzing those. But it means almost to a T, every single student on that workload, we've seen a drop in the actual cost from what we predicted was going to be. We also have some students come, students go. Those aren't going to be things that I'll necessarily talk about. But when a student goes, you lose that. You lose the expense somewhere else too, but you lose that reimbursement side of things. So that's really the impact there. Now the interesting thing in this FMR as we looked at it is when we look at our expenditures, we're actually projected to be 25K under our expenditures. And at first glance, you're like, whoa, this is great. That's right where we want to be. We've also dug into that pretty significantly, saying, well, because basically what we figure with this expenditures for intensive needs is it's just a better picture. It's not that money, I don't think we should kid anybody, that money is not likely coming. Okay, the closer we get, the farther we go. We have actual time studies, actual students, actual services being given. These aren't bills that haven't been paid yet. This money is probably just not in all likelihood coming. Now, we do have some changes that are coming that are going to have some financial impact there, some changes in student body that are going to have some impact. We know that. But more importantly, when we looked at the expenditure side, we are sitting really good right now for our hiring, especially within the situation of the hires that we brought on board. We're good to almost 100,000 as we drill into. Mike Nadeau did some incredible work for us. I might even have to confess that I wasn't the most professional when this FMR came out, and it was kind of like, what the is going on here? Well, Mike calmed us down and said, all right, let's talk it through, let's let you understand it so that you can do something about it. So in that case, we're good, but we've also identified some areas where we are overspending within our expenditures, even though the bottom line looks good. And there are things that we can address, okay? We know that we're high in categories such as we've hired some recess people so that Part 2 is doing recess. Is that in all likelihood going to be paid for with increased revenue from Part 2? Yes, we fully expect it will. That's not shown in the FMR yet. That was the plan, was to, they literally are Part 2 employees that we're using, but right now, we're paying for them. And we won't know what our revenues are from Part 2 until we see down the road. That's about $30,000 right there. We've got increased para costs, we know that. Our paras are high right now. We've had our influx of new students is heavy in terms of students that are needing one-to-one support. We've had to make some adjustments. So we're looking at those. Some of those are going to move on to IEP reimbursable plans. That's in all likelihood, so we'll see some, but right now, that's just costs that we're absorbing. The other thing that's wrapped up in this FMR is this time of year we asked CSSU to encumber all of our expenditures. So every single equipment line, every single utility line, every single supply line, everything is projected to spend all the money. That's a sizable chunk of cash that is really discretionary on our part. We've already had the conversation with staff that said, this is probably not going to be one of those years where you come to us and we say, oh, that's easy, we've got an equipment line for it. We're going to be turning down some things. And that we're going to be watching in the FMR going forward, recognizing that we're going to probably in our expenditures have to get ourselves good to the $100,000 mark, not just the $25,000 mark. We know it, we've got a plan for it. We see the places we can do that, but it's going to be a little sticky this year. And right now, it doesn't, it doesn't look pretty, and I'm glad you look at them with enough diligence to know, hey, you better be able to talk to us about this. So I can answer more questions, but that's kind of what we prepared for you, Dave, in terms of, here's what we're thinking.
So am I reading this right, that, we're projected at the end of the year for transportation to be over budget by $43,000?
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
So,
And that grows out of a couple things. We've typically been, for transportation, about 20,000 over.
yeah,
And this includes some additional costs in terms of our after-school program. We're now running bus multiple days a week. That's about an $8,000 number. We're also, just even in terms of the budget for next year, looking at, it's really our transportation costs. Some of it, we've got to run our buses, we know that. Others are, we've got some discretion in what we call non-team trips that we do as a school, and even how we're staffing our transportation within the building. Gonna have to look at that, because that's some expenses that we have that other schools do not have. But it's not that we're running more buses, it's just, that's an assessment cost, we just pay at the rate.
yeah.
And that line was reduced,
Mhm.
right, this year
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, interesting,
not
because
by a
if
huge
you look,
amount, but it was
not wanting to
reduced.
jump to next year's budget, but
Right.
there's an interesting number in next year's budget. We're predicted to have a significant drop in our transportation costs in next year's budget, which we don't totally understand.
Don't know that one,
Fuel?
Maybe,
maybe.
yeah.
No.
And I think the
don't know what
baseline was
percentage of
set.
Budget fuel is relative to.
Right, but I don't think it'd be to the tune
Debt
of
service.
the amount, yeah. So, we have our FMR, we have our meeting with Bob tomorrow, which is the first meeting we've had since the baseline came out, so we haven't really, we had a special meeting with Bob around Mike around this and
The FMR, yeah.
this FMR, but we haven't dissected the baseline with him yet. But it is one of our big questions, is that transportation piece. Sub-cost is another piece that
You
is
have,
a place we're looking at.
you
We
have a
overspend
baseline
it.
budget?
Hmm?
You have a baseline budget?
Am I not supposed to say that?
Well, how come we haven't seen the baseline budget yet?
Because we get it on December 3rd, I think, is
Yeah.
Oh.
the plan.
We don't get it until the meeting? Really?
Well, we probably get it, we'll get it.
Yeah,
Get
I'm
it
not sure, I'm not,
That-
in-
that's
I don't
the
know
first-
the
that's
procedure
first
of
schedule.
All right.
What
That's
is
the
it?
first scheduled
Okay.
time that we're supposed to discuss it.
my apologies, I didn't mean to drop a number in saying that, that we've started our
No,
kind
I
of
mean, you
review
guys
of it
should
to
be.
make sure
I mean,
it's
you-
accurate.
Yeah.
Right, you're
Yeah.
you're building it so
Yeah.
for us to see it on December, for us to
Right.
have the first pass at it on December 3rd.
Okay.
So you're still putting it together with Bob?
Unless you
Right.
want another
It's not-
meeting this
it's
month.
not ready for us to see that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to see it. That's all. Okay. Well, thanks for that explanation. I understand.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
And-
Thanks for your attention. We'll be reporting on that every month, I guarantee it. And we'll
Yeah.
come kind of prepared to how we're doing because, as I said, we don't expect that revenue piece to change.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many moving parts for this
It is.
year, and that, the last thing we want is to use our fund balance to balance the budget,
Exactly. We're
not
with
to
you.
pay down the budget. And
Right.
then we are gonna have this bond vote, and so if we have a larger budget increase to cover things like that,
It's just not a
It's
good
not gonna help.
combination. No, Yep.
No,
so.
we appreciate that.
Okay. Moving on to 5-4, Elaine had gone to the VSBA conference. Did you go to that?
No, I
You
didn't,
didn't.
not this year.
At the end of last month, and she had a great summary of it, and I asked her to come to this meeting and talk about it for a few minutes, and if she does, and we're still here, maybe she'll do that, but I can't give it justice based on what she spoke about. So, move on to 5-5. Do you guys have anything from the facilities committee, or just continued work on the public relations message?
Yep, working on the public awareness campaign. We've got a parent group that's formed. Quite a few people are interested in it and are very eager to work with us on it. We've got a woman, Lori, what is her last name? Roberts, thank you. Who is giving us marketing advice and helping us to refine a brochure that we started looking at our last meeting, but not anywhere near ready to present to the board yet. we're refining that. At the, we have a new board member, facilities committee member rather, who would like to join us. David Hillman, who is the facilities manager and planning manager at Fletcher Allen. So I think his expertise is going to be incredible joining us on the committee. And at the budget forum, we showed that RETEN video, and I think people were pleased with what they saw with that. And there was a discussion after that, and there was a discussion about, it's Act 6068, I think, also at that budget forum meeting. Which I thought was very good as well. So, actually, I think we had more people come out to the budget forum than I've ever seen before, because it was advertised that we were going to be discussing the bond at the time. So, it was good. We got a good turnout.
I mean, we had 2 people who weren't budget buddies at the meeting, I think.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, everybody else there was budget buddy.
Seriously, that many budget buddies?
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
No, there was more than 2.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a guy from Select.
Yeah.
There was the husband and wife,
Hillman.
facilities folks. Your 2 folks don't count because they're pseudo budget buddies.
Peg Munier and her husband were there, but then they left.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, it looked like mostly budget buddies to me, but
Oh.
yeah.
They were
fine.
gonna have a lot of.
Something wrong with
25
that.
people there, so.
Yeah, there were, well.
I mean, I was pretty happy to have
25
I know.
25
But we
people.
did
I
have-
didn't
I mean,
realize
so
we were
we did
having that
have-
many budget buddies.
We
Wow.
have-
They weren't all budget buddies.
I know, thank you. I didn't think so.
We'll see who shows up on December 3rd.
Yeah. So for the budget buddies, we have Eric Brunvand and Annie Dunn are the teachers. We have Fran Brennan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Annie Dunn was
Great.
player to be named later.
Oh, all right,
Yep.
okay, I didn't realize
She
that.
came in
Great.
at the last minute.
Awesome.
Alice Brown,
Randy
And-
Sweeney.
Barb Como. I'm doing this in a method.
Okay,
Don't
sorry.
mess me up. Then we have Randy Sweeney and Courtney Tharp from the PTO. And I think that's everybody.
Yeah, there's some
And
gentlemen though
Fran.
that I didn't know.
Well, there were the 2 folks that are going to come
I don't
to
know
some
them.
of the meetings that were Friends of
John
Bob's
Harris
Citizens.
and
That's, yes.
Kate Loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And David and Luce Hillman. And Peg and, I can't remember her husband's
Dick.
name, Munier.
Dick.
Dick
But they're not
Munier.
budget buddies.
they were just
No,
there.
that's what I'm
They
saying.
were there.
So
So there were 4.
there were a few more. I would
Okay.
say 6.
There were 4. So,
6 more than last year.
6. Yeah.
all right. So just be sure to share any communication on the facilities, and any facility stuff. Just share it with me before it goes public, so I
Mhm.
know. So we'll move on to discussion matters, which policy committee. I read through these 2 very light changes. Anybody read them? Anybody have any questions? Any? Okay, so those will be up for approval next month. Board's Corner, I know there's one potential Board Corner topic here. And I think Russ volunteered to write it in the meeting. You were gonna do a letter to the editor, but maybe it would be a Board Corner about why it's great to run for school board.
Oh.
There you go.
That
Oh,
would be
yeah.
So, would you wanna do that, or do you wanna do a letter to the editor?
No, I think that's a letter to the editor.
Okay. All right.
Not that I'm just trying to get out of doing board corner.
Okay.
But he is trying to get out of doing board corner.
All right. Bob Finn probably can't get any more articles in the Shelburne News because
They
he's
won't let
used
me.
up his
They-
quota.
My quota has been
Yeah, so,
Topped
does
off, huh?
anybody have any ideas for upcoming board corners? We just did the budget process one.
The grand rounds, do you want to talk about that?
I'd be
In the
happy to
fourth
help
corner?
somebody with that.
Sounds like Kathy wants to write an article about grand rounds.
Definitely.
I could.
There we
I don't
go.
know anything
Kind of
about
rough
it, haven't
community
been,
education,
but, what's that?
Yeah, I mean, even our last it's been the lead on our last two
Yeah, we-
PTO newsletters, or school newsletters.
School newsletters.
But those don't really have that
That
broad of
doesn't
an
go out to
appeal,
the whole
so-
community.
Yeah,
Sure, I'll work together with you on that.
okay.
And what's coming up after Hungry Heart? What's the next plan one?
In January, it looks like it's going to be, we have a program that we teach in middle school, a statewide You Matters teen suicide program.
Yeah.
And it has a parent education component that we are supposed to teach prior, so I think that's gonna be our January session, is suicide prevention and teenage suicide.
Okay. All right. So next we move on to action matters, which is 7.1 is approval of purchase services, which we discussed at our last meeting. So get a motion to approve those.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
No, not so.
Okay.
It's not a purchase service.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay.
That'd be pretty bad if it was.
And then move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And confirming our next date, so we have the 3rd and the 17th of December for budget meetings at 7:30. And you'll send out a room to meet at,
It's
Yeah.
the C-Wing
The
lab.
Sewing Computer Lab that we've met.
That we've met in
for-
before.
Is that,
Okay.
does that fit
Is
the
that
needs?
okay?
It's
where the
much nicer.
PTO is?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
it's
You
much
can-
nicer.
I
I'd
figure
just like
we're
the
looking
tables
at a
to be
crowd-
like the PTO meeting, not last month.
See, we-
month
Do you want
prior.
So you want the
you-
horseshoe
I
one?
would like a bigger
Horseshoe.
table.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
right,
Or do you want just a big
next-
round circle?
It's the
I want a
next classroom after
Big
that.
rectangle with space in the middle, so we're
Yep.
spaced out.
See,
So
wait.
we have
Yep.
lots of
Around the
room.
library, you
Yep,
go-
we can do that.
it's straight
Yep,
across
like you're going down to the band room.
Band room.
Yeah.
Yeah, straight through the library, down the hall to your left. Yep.
So
Yeah.
this is weird, so now this has on here that the joint budget meeting with the town is the 12th. So we've had it as the 20th forever, or the 21st. And then I noticed yesterday that the town put out a calendar that said it was the 12th to the 13th.
I thought I saw
I saw
something
the
from
12th.
Sandy previous, let me pull up what my calendar is.
I've
I
already
remember
had it on
s-
my calendar.
Is what, the 12th?
I
thought
remember seeing it be switched in an email.
To,
had
well, I
to
just,
switch my calendar
The 12th,
to the 12th from the 20th.
what was,
Yeah, final budget meeting with town on the 12th.
yeah, I had it on the 12th from 6 to 8, but you think there's a email?
so it was in, if you go to the budget calendar on the website, it shows us the 20th, but does either day work better or worse for anybody?
I thought there was a reason the town requested that shift. I'm trying to find that email from,
So that,
You
okay,
think it
so,
was from Sandy?
yeah.
So in the past, we've had a January budget forum, you know, our
At school.
kind of one last
Yeah,
pass for
right.
the public to weigh in. And,
Right,
you know, it's
separate
usually
from the
about as
town
well
meeting.
attended as, you know,
yeah, but this
most of
is,
these things tend to be. So, you know, I guess that's a question, are we going to try to squeeze in a public budget forum when, you know, it's always been the third week in January, the joint town school meeting. So, you know, do we want to try to squeeze some, you know, a forum in there and, or, you know.
no, this
if
is
the
that
town-
meeting. This
What's
is-
that?
This is that meeting.
No, it's not. No, I'm talking about one like we did the other night
Information
where,
meeting.
yes.
Where it's,
Excuse
it's our own private show.
Right.
Yes,
Not
that,
up
that,
with the
that
town.
it's, here's the things
We're
we've
doing some
done,
talking.
you know, getting any input, whether or not we
Here's
then want to go
decision
back and
package.
revisit
I was gonna say,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Shared decision
That's
package.
been the purpose of that, and as I said, you know, the town, school joint meeting has always been third week of January, but I don't know that it makes much difference. I guess the question is, what flexibility do they have? And there is you know, a certain amount of time that the budget has to be warned by, so it can't be pushed back
Right.
too far. I want to say it's like 30 days.
It is 30 days.
So, you know, with town meetings, probably March 2nd or 3rd, somewhere in there. You know, it's obviously got to be done by the end of January.
Well,
Right.
CVU is going to be at it and the town, so don't we want to coordinate it with them? I mean, assuming it's a joint thing,
You mean with CVU or?
both.
Well, the town's the one, apparently the town has requested that it be on the 12th.
Yeah.
Oh, that's this,
I just
the
forwarded
one
that
that,
email,
the
Dave.
12th is the joint
I'm not talking the
one?
information, yes, the 12th is the
Right.
joint town school meeting.
When's the budget hearing? I thought that was the.
That is the,
That's
I
it.
believe that is the official budget.
That's
That's-
this
the
budget
official-
meeting with the
The wrap
town.
up from the budget process, like the forum.
we don't have a date for that yet. That's what
That's
I'm
what-
saying, do we want to have that? And that's just been us, that hasn't included CVU, hasn't included the town. That's just been
kinda
our,
same
But
players.
that's usually before the.
Yes.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, when we've got 3 weeks, there's usually a little more time to fit that in somewhere.
Right, because typically we've had a PTO meeting window where we could do it after a PTO, and PTO, as I'm looking at my calendar, is the next night.
It's on what,
after-
the
it's on
13th?
The 13th.
So, I mean,
Hmm.
once we have the town meeting, that budget is warned correctly. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not meant to be changed.
Yeah,
after
but
that
what we
point.
do is we,
No, we usually do it that night,
we,
right?
we break, or, after the actual presentation, we hold a meeting
Right.
that takes about, 2 seconds, but
And say,
we hold a meeting to give it the final thumbs up, and that's what officially gets warned.
yeah,
So, I don't see a huge issue with it. Frankly, the budget forums, it's not like we've taken anything and changed it, after we've held those in the past. So perhaps we live without it.
or we do it the Tuesday before on the 6th.
Well, without the PTO meeting,
Right.
are we gonna get anybody?
We mean, yeah.
So,
There's a support staff meeting on the 6th, Tuesday the 6th.
In that evening, support, is that a
5:30.
negotiations meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
which actually I think Cindy said was the one where they'll exchange proposals. Anyway, so I assume you'd be at that one?
Well, I would be, but I'm gonna be at my winter sales meeting, so I'm gonna miss
Yeah.
that.
You know, we could,
Check code for a golf trip.
could,
No, I wish it were.
That code for.
I thought it was a sailing trip, like in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
The January 6th, language proposals exchanged and reviewed.
Yeah.
could I make a suggestion, something that we could try? You know, if our goal is to get people out, we've never tried it, what if we were to do a morning coffee budget forum that week before?
Absolutely not.
No?
No more morning meetings. No,
Okay.
can't do that.
All right.
No.
Not a morning person, Dave?
No, I have a
Gotta work.
job. Sorry.
You're right, school board chair.
Yeah, that's right.
There's something else we should know about?
Yeah, no. I can't do any more morning meetings.
Okay,
Sorry, I shouldn't have jumped in that quickly.
that's okay.
But I'm trying to open these, but the ironic thing is, like, I had it as the 20th, and I spoke to Joe Colangelo today, and he's like, yeah, we can do it on the 20th if you want.
I think it's just because CVU has their same meeting at 6 o'clock.
That's what that is?
They
Okay.
had theirs at CVU's final approval is
Okay.
January 20th, so I think that's the problem, is you'd have 2 groups potentially coming to the meeting.
So the
But I think
towns,
we always did them together, didn't we?
CVU?
Just the town.
CVU
No,
and
just the town. I've never had
Oh, yeah,
CVU.
CVU's included.
In the town.
CVU presents to the town, this is to the select board, right? And,
That same
and
meeting where?
SCS.
At the 12th, not at
All
the,
3 groups present their
Good.
budgets. I mean,
Yeah.
we're presenting it, it's a hearing, it's a forum,
Right.
and
And so the
At the
town
town.
comes
I think-
town
together.
stands up,
right.
the
I think we're
CVS
just
stands up,
confused,
and
and
we
we've always
stand.
done another
Right.
meeting separately, which
I
is
see what
just
you're
us, just talking to typically the PTO. And we've typically done it a week before, because it always
Right.
seems to have a PTO meeting, and we don't
That's the
have it.
budget
So,
forum.
Yes.
I've just never been to one that's CVU, but I'm not a taxpayer, so.
See, in the joint meeting, CVU is at.
Yep.
And if you're
With the
saying
town.
that CVU is wrapping up their budget on the 20th,
Then it doesn't make sense.
if they're not wrapping their budget up until the 20th, we can't
We can't wrap ours with the town.
do the joint meeting with the town on the 12th.
Okay.
And so I think we need to get a better sense of when CVU is really wrapping theirs up to present
right.
it.
And to
Um,
see if the switch has really occurred.
Yeah.
all right.
So should we put a place marker for ourselves in our own calendars on the 20th as well, just until that's decided?
That
So we
sounds
don't
like- sounds
schedule
like it.
into that?
So I think that the right thing is to put it in on the 13th. The town has 2 dates available, the 13th and the 20th.
Not the 12th?
13th or
Not
12th?
the 12th.
They don't have?
Oh,
I'm really
come
confused.
on.
Tell you what, I'm just gonna like not even worry about it until
We
get
hear
back
about
to
it.
us.
Yeah.
You
So-
tell us to show up and we'll be there.
Yeah.
So I have to coordinate when CVU's
If we
ready.
can.
All right, this is the longest conversation about dates ever. Okay,
At least I
12th,
got
13th, or
on.
20th.
all right, thank you very much.
My machine worked. That's good.
All right, so, and I think those were our dates. You get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Wow.
All right.